Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff D. Decker, and I'm the Manager of Communications and Media for the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency. Today, we will provide an update on the current wildfire situation that is impacting communities. Please feel free to record, cut clips, or quote today's call as needed. We are recording the call as well, and it will be available later today on the SPSA YouTube channel and the Facebook page. Joining us today is the Honorable Scott Moe, Premier of Saskatchewan, and Brian Chartrand, Executive Director, Land Operations for the SPSA. Premier Moe will speak to the developments of the Cayford and Lobstick fires over the weekend. Please be advised that we'll take our last question at 11:30. However, given the delayed start, we'll have a little bit of flexibility on that. So at this time, I would now like to turn the briefing over to Premier Moe for his remarks.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and through you, just to thank you as well to everyone at the Saskatchewan, the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency for the efforts that they've been making early this spring as we faced a number of startups across the province and two significant fires that we have been addressing. You have been addressing alongside our community partners for the last number of days. I'll just maybe speak at a very high level with respect to each fire from more of the provincial view, and then I know Brian and others will have the details with respect to the responses in each case. The first is the Cayford fire, where we have a number of evacuations, probably the largest number of evacuations in the province, largely due to access, smoke, those types of things, as that particular fire continues to spread, and as Brian or others likely indicated yesterday, had taken a little bit of a run over the weekend. But we have in excess of 1,000 people evacuated from the community of Red Earth, largely, I believe also some evacuations from Shoal Lake into Regina, Saskatoon, maybe a few in Prince Albert and Moose Jaw. And we continue to address that fire as it continues to be very much one of the two fires of concern in this province. The second is the Lobstick fire, which started on the south side of the Saskatchewan River in the vicinity of Duck Lake, between Duck Lake and Prince Albert. Has since jumped to the north side of the river as well. Huge efforts by local governance organizations, rural municipalities, volunteers, local fire departments, and the SPSA in keeping homes safe on both sides of the river in that case. And I have had the opportunity, being from the community of Shelburne, where some of those evacuations have occurred, to see that effort firsthand. And I spent the weekend in and out of the Prince Albert Fire Control Office and the local RM office in Shelburne. So a huge thank you to all those in the SPSA and those local volunteers, fire departments, local governance, everyone that's been involved. First, to make every effort to keep homes safe. Second is to make every effort to contain the fire as it is, but also to put in place some strategic, I think, containment initiatives so that should the wind shift, that we are protecting the communities to the east, on the eastern flank of this fire in particular. On the north side of the river, that would be Holbein, Crutwell, running right into the city of Prince Albert, and on the south side of the river, McDowell and other communities heading into Prince Albert. So really a number of initiatives that have been put forward. One is to contain the fire as best we can. Two is to protect the homes that have been threatened, and we had in the RM at Shelburne about 130 people evacuated, about 70 households, if I remember correctly, and a tremendous local effort to have water alongside the SPSA, to have water on those homes over the course of the weekend. All the while that has been happening, there's been a significant effort both in the north and south side of the river to build up our fire protection on the eastern flank of that fire. Again, this is should the wind shift and start to come from a more traditional way, the westerly winds, that we wanted to prevent this fire ever having an opportunity to take a run, as it has ample fuel alongside the river, as it heads into Prince Albert. And we all know the communities and the acreages that are in that space. And so I think it would be fair to say that we're with a little bit of weather, a lot of effort in much more confident, not a position of confidence, but we're in a much more confident position than we have been in over the course of the weekend. For each of these fires, I just want to say a huge thank you, and I'll speak to what I saw this weekend in my local community, but a huge thank you to all of those involved, starting with all of the folks at the SPSA, addressing these fires, multiple fires. From a provincial perspective, and the effort to contain them, protect homes, and to have that more strategic effort on, ensuring that these fires aren't going to spread into a much larger area in the weeks ahead. To the RMs involved, a huge effort. In particular, I saw in Shelbrook the RM Reeve, Christine Struby, the town administrator, the RM administrator have taken up residence in the RM office. And have really made a great effort in communicating with those that are evacuated and all the rest in the area as well, trying to keep them up to date with the most recent information. The fire chief, deputy fire chief from the Shelbrook Fire Department, just incredible community people. Buckland Fire Department, just a very, very capable, competent, and professional fire department came in and did what they do each and every year, provide the leadership and keep homes safe, and have helped us not only in addressing the immediate threats, but have helped us in preparing some of the communities for some of the strategic threats that may or may not happen down the way. The volunteers in particular, again, just to speak to my home community, the Shelbrook Cadets, taken up residence in the community hall, ran the evacuation center all weekend, bringing in meals, providing meals for the fire guys, and just supporting the community like they always do, but in a way that only a volunteer can do. And so thank you to all of the volunteer groups and those individuals involved, and the business community. What I saw when a community come together was the local hardware store, the local co-op hardware store, putting pumps and hoses and electrical supplies right at the front of their store, staying open late, asking people if they need anything to just come in and ensure that they have access to anything that they might need to keep their home safe in what is otherwise is a very trying and lest to say a very successful or very stressful time. And all the families. I think in our community, many, if not all, virtually all, not quite all, of the folks that were evacuated are staying with family and friends in the surrounding area, and it's really is a special time when you see communities and individuals come together to support one another. We see that year in, year out in other communities, and I had an opportunity to see it in the community where I live over the course of this weekend. And there's so many thanks that can go out. We're not finished yet, for sure, with the lobstick fire, but we aren't also out of fire season yet. And so we'll see this repeated time and time again. And so I would just close with a broad thank you to all of those in years gone by, and for as we enter fire season this summer, to thank in advance and for past efforts everyone in the province that has been required to and has stepped forward to support those in their community when there's a time in need. So I think we're in a stronger position today than maybe we were 4 days ago when it comes to the lobstick fire. We have some more work to do with respect to the Kayford fire and the lobstick fire. But I'll turn it over to the folks at SPSA, and they'll bring some more details with respect to exactly the particulars of each of those fires as we see them today.
Thank you, Premier Moe. Before we move along, I would like to take this opportunity to strongly encourage residents in the area to please stay informed. Download and use Sask Alert along with your community's communication platforms to get the latest information. I would also remind residents to ensure that they choose the location nearest to them in the Sask Alert app in order to receive alerts for their area. Each day, the SPSA updates its situation on the website. You can find it on the yellow bar at the top of every page. You can also find information on all the wildfires and the current fire bans on the SPSA's active incidents page. Paying attention to these resources can provide valuable information to keep you safe. And if your community is placed on an evacuation order, please follow that order. The SPSA's #1 priority is human life. Should anyone be unaccounted for, crews must shift priorities from the response and suppression efforts. We continue to monitor the situation and provide updates as our website and Facebook page as conditions evolve. We will now open it up to questions from the media. Please use the raised hand function to indicate that you have a question. You will then be recognized when it is your turn. Media members are asked to please turn on their microphones and cameras when they are asking their question. Also, please identify yourself and the media outlet that you are representing. When recognized, media members can ask one question with a follow-up question. When you are done, please turn off your camera and mute your mic. In addition, if there are any additional questions after today's briefing, please send them to the SPSA media inbox, which is media.spsa@gov.sk.ca. This is the SPSA's main contact for all media. If there are any questions for the SPSA after today, they should be sent to this account. So we are going to start with Christopher Vandenbrekel.
Thank you very much, Chris Vandenbrekel, Global News. What is the danger level right now with the lobstick fire? I know a lot of work was done over the weekend. Can you explain as to what the status of that fire is and what the risk level is to people in the Shellbrook, Holbein areas?
Brian, is that something you'd be able to address?
Sure. Yep. So the fire danger rating in the area, we're still in high conditions, but fortunately we did receive some precipitation over the fire over the weekend, which assisted with our suppression efforts. So that did give us a good operational period yesterday to establish lines, get dozer lines in, and bolster our response. And so we've experienced very minimal growth to the fire yesterday. So our containment lines are holding. And again, we with the cooler temps and the current forecast of precip coming in the coming days, it's looking favorable for us. But again, it all depends on whether or not that precipitation actually does occur. There's many times where we think it's going to come and it doesn't. So we don't hope on that. So we still have various contingency backup plans and support lines if we continue to be challenged. But again, as Premier Scott Moe mentioned already, we're sitting much better than a few days ago when this thing was up and running. We have our incident management team in place, which are very highly experienced and trained personnel that are engaging with that fire. They're being briefed right now. So as of today, the incident management team will be on that fire and assessing and continuing with that incident until it is extinguished. So again, you never know. Things change quickly in this business, but things are looking very favorable at the moment.
I saw in the one of the SPSA updates over the weekend that there was an effort to drive the head of the fire towards a lake. Can you talk about what's involved in that and how successful that was?
Yeah, so that's one of the strategies that we use a lot when we get our fleet called out there. We always look for what do you call it? Natural barriers, and we try to steer the fire in. So we'll use retardant, and we'll use our 215s. We'll try to cool certain areas, and just the heat of the fire will keep going towards the fuel. But in this case, the Culligan fire, we were managed to steer it into that lake, and then cool off the flanks and get dozer lines and personnel to continue cooling it off so that it didn't continue to run. So the head of the fire did run into the lake and has not jumped that lake. It's currently contained there at the moment as we continue to secure dozer lines and pump and hose lines on either side of the flank. So just a strategy that we use, try to use natural barriers to help us out.
I would just make a comment on that with on Brian's comments about the importance of steering the head of that fire into that lake on, I believe that was Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, Brian. And I heard the bombers rolling that particular day. Actually answered a few questions from people wondering why they're bombing in the middle of the forest. And when it came to light what actually happened there, that the fire was to some degree making a run for that eastern flank that I had said the SPSA and others with a number of cats were trying to get into place. And we probably weren't in the position of we probably didn't have the work done on Saturday that even is happening and is completed today. And I don't know that we were maybe ready to fend off the head of the fire coming towards that eastern flank. And so the fact that the bombers were able to head that off into the lake before it approached that fire guard that was trying to be built there, I think is tremendous, not only for the situation that we're in today, which is much better than we were Saturday, but for us trying to contain and prevent this fire from heading east towards Holbein, Crotwell, and ultimately into the Prince Albert area. So the fact and the fast action and the capability of our pilots and the SPSA to deploy on such short notice to stop what was essentially the fire trying to make a run for that eastern flank and drive that head into the lake and settle things down, I think is a large reason why we are in the position that we are today. And so for that, we're grateful.
Thank you, Premier Moe. We have a number of questions in the chat as well, so I'll be moving in between the chat and our live Teams broadcast. So from the chat, we have a question from Neil Bellinger of CJWW. Are you able to touch on the number of cattle evacuated from the area, where they have been taken, as well as any ag infrastructure that has been damaged, such as fences or barns?
Brian or somebody, do you have
Yes.
some specific information on that? And I can speak as well after just maybe do a couple of conversations that I've had and knowing the area.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have much to comment on that question per se in regards to cattle. No reports or information was brought to me on how many were removed from the area or where they may have went. But as it comes to infrastructure, there was some losses. There was a chicken coop reported that was lost, a shed, and then an older non-occupied trailer was lost over the weekend, but no residential homes were lost on any of these fires. Our Valley's protection has been successful, but that's all that's been reported for lost infrastructure.
And I can, just knowing the area a little bit, I can expect that there will be some fence lines that will be damaged with this fire, just knowing where the fire was and where things are in that particular area. I know there was a number of horses that were evacuated, as well as some cattle that were evacuated. I don't think it was high numbers of cattle, but there was some cattle that were evacuated. In those very same farmyards, there's some values protection. There's the gel coating that was put, I believe, on a couple of yards, one anyways, and to ensure the farmyard was the safe and the assets that were in there. And then a couple of outbuildings, as Brian said. I just knowing the area again, one of those outbuildings that was lost was, although it is a loss to use a vacant trailer in your yard, it was quite a heroic effort locally and again by the SPSA that the rest of the buildings, the home, the shop, the rest of the buildings in what's a pretty isolated yard in a very forested area were not lost as well. And so although there was some, I wouldn't even say minor loss, but some losses, it could have been a lot worse. And so again, appreciation to all involved.
Thank you, Premier Moe. We'll now go back to the Teams call, and it belongs to Tina now.
Hi, thank you. My question is for Premier Mo. We spoke to some reeves in rural municipalities who say they've been pushing for more coordination between municipal and provincial fire restrictions in forested areas that cut through RMs in particular. And so the reeve for the arm of Duck Lake was saying that they've been pushing the government trying to get the provincial forest under the purview of the RM so that when they put a fire ban in place, the fire ban is also put in place in the Nisbet forest in their example. Because they said basically the province has to impose its own restrictions in the forest, and then that slows response time during critical fire conditions. So I guess my question is, would the government consider that in the future, putting the purview of the provincial forest under an RM when it comes to fire bans?
No, but I think there is an opportunity for us to work more closely in specific areas when it does come to a fire ban. One of the challenges with a provincial fire ban is they are much broader and I would say somewhat much more encompassing than a rural municipal fire ban that is put in place. We had started working on our provincial ban, which is in place today, and very shortly about the time that Duck Lake was, and by the time we were able, and it's assessed every day by the SPSA. And then ultimately was put in place. We understand some of the frustrations, and I would be certainly open to always doing better when it comes to the communication between rural municipalities and the SPSA and in local areas. But with respect to the broader provincial fire bans, there is a process for them to come into place. They're much more encompassing than what we see in rural municipalities. And I think that's a theme that we heard last year, not only with rural municipalities, but even with northern municipalities, is we constantly need to make efforts to improve the communication channels between local municipalities, whether it be rural, urban, or First Nations or anything else, and what the SPSA efforts are, and what ultimately how we overlay those efforts, so that they can be as effective as possible. I did see some of that in a very, very synergistic and I'd say positive way in the work that I saw this weekend in a community where I live, between the RM, SPSA, RCMP, local fire departments, volunteers. Was quite well coordinated, but there's always room for improvement for sure. And I think that's been pointed out by the RM at Duck Lake.
You have a follow-up, Tina?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to Jeremy Symes.
Hello, just my question here is just about the Caveford conditions. If someone can just speak to that, how that fire is doing.
Wait, Brian, can you speak to that fire?
I sure can. So the Crayford fire is still not contained. It's sitting at 11,500 hectares. And so we have crews, aircraft, and dozers currently working on that fire. We did get a dozer line and restricted the growth to the north side of that fire, and we're continuing to reinforce that line so that it doesn't impact the road just north of that fire. But it has, with the southeast winds, and then the winds are going to change more from the east, pushing it further west. So it did kind of grow on the west side. So crews have been setting up Valley's protection. There's various cabins on the west side of that fire. No structures have been lost. A number of them have been protected. The fire burnt past them, but the entire structure plus yard have been non-touched by the fire. So that's great news there. Again, we'll continue to assess and monitor those values and continue to put more resources on it to get it contained. Again, hoping for some better weather, but it's less likely that we're going to receive any precipitation on that eastern side. So the conditions are going to remain high. So we're expecting vigorous fire activity. But again, we will be resourcing that fire up and hopefully getting that thing dealt with. So thank you.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Jeremy. We're going to go back to the chat now with a question from Jeff Smith of CJME. Can you tell us more about how evacuees are being accommodated? Are they in hotels or facilities like the Real District in Regina?
Brian, or is Joan or someone on this call?
No.
Yep. So most of the families that were evacuated from the Shellbrook area are staying with family and friends. But if there's anybody out there that need accommodations, we are here to help them. But as far as I know, reports are is everybody went to family and friends.
And then in the Red Earth and Shoal Lake, I think we have a number of evacuees there as well, right? Correct?
There are evacuees from there. That's being handled through Red Cross. But looking at the numbers that they've reported to us, Shoal Lake has 258 individuals and Red Earth evacuated 560. But there's an additional 117 vehicles that left, and they are confirming the individuals of how many people were in each one of those vehicles. So the total number for Red Earth is we don't have a report on that. But again, this is Red Cross and not us assisting at this time. But we are here to help if they need help at any point in time.
Thanks, Brian. We'll now return to the team's questions. Ms. Mandrick, you're up. Oh, it looks like you're muted. We can't hear you. Okay, there we go. You've sent your question to the chat. Let's have a look. The NDP is calling for the release of the 2025 MMP review. What is the latest update regarding the status of this report, and will there be enough time to implement any recommendations stemming from this report for this wildfire season?
We'll release it, I think, as soon as we're able. And the second answer would be yes. We would, fully intend to. If there's recommendations that come from that report, we'll certainly intend to move on those sooner rather than later. And I think, in fairness, precipitate a broader conversation as well about, how we can always look to do better, not just the SPSA, but also the government in structuring, our fire response, structuring the support for evacuees potentially across the province in, this summer and years to come. So if there are recommendations, we'll release a report as soon as we're able. If there's recommendations that are in that report, we're going to try to address them as quickly as possible. And then I think, look for opportunities to even go beyond what might be in the report to continually improve the response, whether it be fire, whether it be flood, or whatever the disaster might be.
Okay. Ms. Mandrick says that's all of her questions, so we'll return to the Teams version. And just a heads up, everyone, we've got about another 5 or 6 minutes left, and we'll get to as many questions in that time as we can. Next, the file, it just says editorial. Do we have someone that can speak for that? If not, well, editorial in the chat. All right. Let's go down to the chat. It's from Arjun at the Daily Herald, I believe. Yeah, it says, Premier, given your personal connection to the Shellbrook area, what are you hearing from residents, friends, and neighbors? And what reassurances can you give them and other residents today?
A lot of concern as we went into the weekend. I found my way back home Friday night. The local emergency operations had already been stood up. There's a number of SPSA officials in the RM office, the RM Reeve, and administrator, town administrator, the RCMP, fire chiefs were coming in and out. When I arrived, virtually every individual in the evacuated area, save for one, had been contacted. They found that last individual's phone number very quickly after I had arrived Friday evening, and they had been in contact with then everyone that was in the evacuation zone, and had plans in place already Friday evening on how they were going to, supply or enhance their local efforts with those of the SPSA to protect those properties prior to leaving. And I saw that happen in real time. So there was a lot of concern, I think, as the fire started to roll through the forest south of Shelburne, because of the proximity of about these 70 homes. And I think equally there was a lot of concern as to where that fire might go in the days ahead. Saturday was largely a turning point, as the weather was not in our favor Saturday. However, with the efforts of driving the head of that fire into the lake, the efforts that all of the fire personnel and individuals had on the west flank of the fire, where a large number of the residential properties and farmyards were, it really started to shift as we found our way through Sunday and now into Monday. Although we're not done and the fire isn't out, and we need to be prepared for anything to happen, I think that concern is starting to give way to it was a pretty strong effort, not flawless, but a pretty strong effort by all of those involved. And I just again would say, in addition to the provincial efforts from the SPSA, the local effort and the people coming together, whether they be volunteer fire departments from Shelburne and neighboring communities, those that are essentially serving in volunteer capacity at the local RM in the town. People just were there to contribute, there to support the friends and family, the business community, as individuals. It was really something quite incredible, and we can be very appreciative of where we live in this world, and we see that time and time again across the province when we're in the face of danger. We saw it last summer. We're seeing it again, unfortunately, already this summer, and I'm sure we'll see it numerous times throughout the summer. So I think what started with some real concern and a thirst for information, that information flowed as best as it could. And was really quarterbacked out of that RM office and through the SPSA, even up to and including the evacuation of the hospital in the area, which I understand they're looking at bringing all those folks back, the hospital in the long-term care area, to one today where I think there's a lot more confidence in the situation that we're facing here today, knowing full well that our work isn't done. And there's more work to do to ensure that we fully contain this fire on both sides of the river. And on the south side of the river, there's been a huge effort as well to ensure that we have that eastern flank built up and we're able to contain this fire should the conditions change. So big thanks and much love to so many people that did so very much over the course of the weekend and the last week or two.
Our next question will come from Laura Gillis.
Hi, Laura Gillis, CBC News. I was wondering, besides Red Earth and Shoal Lake, what other communities are at risk due to the Kayford fire, and will any other evacuation alerts be put out?
Brian, if you could handle that.
Yeah, no problem. So first of all, good question. And ultimately, so our forecasting based on the weather and our resourcing and just looking at the geographical location of this fire, things change. I know that very quickly, but currently in its current condition, it's fairly restricted. It started in an old burn from a few years ago, so a lot of the fuel's been burnt. And that larger fire, it would be the Bell fire in 2021, a lot larger than this Kayford fire, and it was contained within certain barriers as well, along with our suppression efforts. But there's natural barriers that stopped it from growing, and we find that this fire is running into those same types of conditions. So it's limited on where it can go. So it is giving us time to get resources put on it. And again, using those natural barriers like we did similarly with the lobstick fire. We're going to use those barriers to our advantage. And again, there are some values in the area, and we'll continue to protect those as we continue to build lines and get more personnel out on the ground out there. So we're not predicting the fire to impact any other communities other than perhaps smoke. So depending on the wind conditions, the smoke might affect surrounding communities. But again, we established a line on the north side, so we'll continue to bolster that and make sure that our line holds so it doesn't head north towards the 55 highway, which is access to Red Earth and Shoal Lake. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but we don't see it impacting any other communities fire-wise. Smoke-wise, perhaps, yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Given the time constraints today, there will be no further follow-up questions. We'll have one final question from the chat, and that is from Shane Fraser of the Saskatchewan Star Phoenix. Were pets evacuated as well? Brian, Brian, did you hear of any pets being evacuated?
So we don't, or at least the numbers don't come to me, so I can't give you a firm number, but advisories and alerts go out giving the public notification that a possible evacuation is going to be coming. And then when an evacuation is issued, people are already advised and know and already made plans. Again, a lot of people go to friends and families, so they'd be taking their animals with them. But unfortunately, I don't have the numbers of pets with me.
I can just speak to some anecdotal conversations that I had. Yes, there was a number of pets that were evacuated as well, and just a conversation that I was privy to in the RM office, or the local RM office this weekend, with some of the evacuation support with the SPSA. As it was said earlier, the largest majority, if not virtually all, of the individuals that were evacuated in the Shellbrook area are staying with family and friends. There was, I know, a number of pets that were involved with that. There's local pounds, and there was also a number of local individuals that had put their name forward that if you're unable to bring your pet to wherever it is you're going, we would be able to do so. There was also those offers for aggregate farm animals as well from a numbers in the area, and it was just, I think, another example of individuals supporting one another and their families and their loved ones, which at times are pets as well. I can speak not specifically to the case in Red Earth and Shoal Lake with those evacuees, but more generally as well, is there is very often, always, virtually pets involved as well. And there are it does to some degree complicate the logistics of an evacuation, in particular when you are trying to put placements into hotels. You do segregate pet-friendly hotels from those that may not accept pets. But I without knowing for sure and just seeing the numbers of evacuees due to access to the community, I think, and smoke is the largest reason that those evacuations took place, that almost assuredly there would have been pets involved. And that very much is part of the placement efforts that, in this case, it'd be the Red Cross, but that the SPSA has to undertake in these instances as well. I've seen it before, and I'm certain it would have happened here too. And I know it did in the Shelburne case.
Thank you, Premier Moe. So that will conclude our Q&A.
Jeff, apologies if I can just get a follow-up in quickly.
No, actually, Christopher,
it's a key follow-up to another question that was asked. Premier Moe, you if you could provide a timeline on when we will see the M&P report, please.
I think I said earlier, as soon as it's available, we'd make it available publicly. We've said that from the beginning, and that remains. When it's when we're able to make it public, we will.
What is the timeline on that though? Because it was due months ago.
That is the timeline. When it's available, when we can make it available, we will. And I would say that's as soon as possible.
All right. Again, thank you for everyone's participation today. That concludes the media availability. Reminder that additional questions can be sent by email to media.spa.gov.sk.ca. Thanks again and have a safe rest of your day.
Jeff, I just make one closing comment on that last question
sure.
as well. The timeline was extended because MNP wanted to further consult with stakeholders and individuals as well. That's why the timeline was extended. It wasn't because the government has been sitting on the report for an extended period of time. There was additional work that the MNP wanted to do. So as soon as it's ready and available, we look to release it at the earliest opportunity. Thank you, everybody.